Do you want to provide different websites and services on just one Linux server? I'll show you how. In this video, I'll walk you through how to install NGINX, configure a reverse proxy for your domain, secure it with a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate completely free, enable HTTP2, and harden your web server for security and performance. Alright, just like with everything that you do on a Linux server, you start with apt update and everything is up to date. And then if you haven't installed NGINX yet, you can just run apt install NGINX and then it will install it for you, and it shouldn't even take that long. It's already done. After the installation, you find everything in etc NGINX. So in here is everything you need to know for your NGINX configuration, and we can change into sites available. There is only this default page here. So if you would check your web server right now in the browser, it will show you NGINX default page, but we obviously want to have our own. So let's create another config file. Let's call it, I like to call my config files the same way how the URL is. Instead of the dot, I'm using underscores. So it will be test underscore the sysadmin hub underscore com. And in this file, we're going to define what NGINX will do when we type in the URL test.thesysadminhub.com. So we start with server. Oops, we can't do this, but we can do this. So, and then we have it listen to port 80 and also listen for IPv6 to port 80 as well, and then have the server name test.thesysadminhub.com. Don't forget the colon at the end, or else it won't understand it. And then we define the location for this one. This one, it's the root location, that's why it's only \. And then we're going to define proxy pass HTTP local host, let's say 8080 for example. You're going to define the port here if you're using Docker, which I highly recommend. That's what I'm doing. You can define different ports, and then you're just going to choose the port here that your Docker container uses. And then we need a proxy set header host set to host. Don't forget the colon at the end. A proxy set header x real IP set to remote address. This one will forward the IP to the Docker container or to the service of the person that's visiting the site. Then we need a proxy set header x forwarded for $proxy add x forwarded for. So those are just variables that's going to be passed through that, but NGINX is going to handle that all for us. So proxy set header x forwarded proto scheme should be $, and then make sure you have 2 of those brackets closed because we have 2 of those open. So we can save this here, and then to enable this we need to make a symbolic link in the sites enabled. What I like to do is I go back and I really go into sites enabled. In here there's only the default site enabled, so you can actually prepare different kinds of config, how many you would like, and you can choose which one are enabled and which one not. You can just link them in the sites enabled location or remove them from there. So we're going to use ln-s. The original file location is one directory back in sites available and is called this one. Then enter, and now we have our test the sysadminhub.com in here, and it's linked to this one. And then we can test the configuration with NGINX-T. Always test your configurations and only restart or reload your NGINX service if the syntax is okay. Otherwise, it will affect the NGINX completely and might even break other services that you are trying to serve on your Linux server. But since everything is okay here with us, we can do systemctl reload nginx. I misspelled it here, and now this one is available. It doesn't really matter if you do a reload or a restart. The difference is just with the reload, all the other services are not affected. With the restart, the nginx will shut down for a split second and come right back up. But for most cases, it doesn't even make that much of a big difference. Okay, let's clear that up. So now what we did is we have it listen to port 80, which is just HTTP, but obviously we want it to be HTTPS with secure communication. And for that, we can use SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. They're completely free. You just need to install something for that, and that something is apt install certbot -3-certbot-nginx. Let's add -y so it will install it. Should only take a second, and now Certbot is installed. And what we can do now is we can run this Certbot command, certbot --nginx, to tell Certbot that we're using Nginx as a reverse proxy or a web server in general, and then -d for the domain, and then have test.sysadminhub.com. What you need to do first is where you have your domain registered. For the subdomain test, you need to set an A record pointing towards this Linux server. I have this, and then it's asking me to enter an email address. What we can do here is, let's do certbot at the sysadminhub.com, and then yes, I agree to the terms of service. I'll do that one too. Now it's requesting the certificate. I hope it set it all right, and it looks completely fine. It tells us here, congratulations, you have successfully enabled HTTPS on, and then it shows you your domain. And what Certbot does automatically by himself, you don't need to do anything here. If we go to our configuration again, it will add a bunch of stuff in here, but no worries, it's all fine. So the server name and the location, that's all from us. What Certbot added is those stuff here. You can see that at the end with those comments. managed by Certbot. So it tells the NGINX to listen to 443, and then it created the certificate, the full chain PAM, and the private key, and also this SSL NGINX config, and also this DH parameter. If ever be accessed by HTTP by port 80, it will return 404. So this is all done by Certbot. But after Certbot is done, we can tweak our file a little bit more. For example, we can enable HTTP 2, which is faster and a bit more secure than normal HTTP 1. And for that, we're just going to add HTTP 2 in here and also HTTP 2 in here. What we also can do is we can add some custom SSL session settings. We need to do that before the location block. So let's do it right here under the server name. We can do SSL session time out. Let's do 1 day. SSL session cache shared SSL. Do 50 minutes, and the SSL session tickets, we set it to off. So what did we just do here? Obviously with the HTTP2, we enabled HTTP2 for IPv6 and also IPv4. And with this SSL session timeout here, it will cache the SSL session for anyone who will enter your URL. It will cache it for 1 day, so the page will load faster for this 1 day. After this session timed out, it will just cache it again, so it will be faster again. And the same goes for this SSL session cache. It stores the session cache in shared memory for added performance. And with the third one here, we disable the SSL session tickets for added security. But we can do much more than that. We can add strong ciphers for more security. We can say SSL protocols TLS version 1.2 and TLS version 1.3, and then SSL prefer server ciphers. Let's set it to on, and I will copy this one because it's a lot to type. We're going to define the SSL ciphers. What does this one do? So obviously this one, the SSL protocols, it will tell every web browser that we only allow TLS version 1.2 and 1.3. Then the second one, the server ciphers on, ensures that server provided ciphers will take priority. And in here with the server side, with the SSL ciphers, we're going to tell the web browser which ciphers we accept. And those one, they don't contain any secret at all. So that's why you can show them here, or I can show them here on screen, because those are public ciphers that everyone can see and use. But there's even more that we can add to our config file. Those are a bit more. So I will just paste them right in. Let me just clean that up for you. What does this do? So the first line that we added here, the strict transport security, it enforces HTTPS for 2 years. So if you visit the website once, then for the next 2 years on your browser, it will be enforced that you can only do so with HTTPS. And don't worry, the Let's Encrypt certificate, it's not valid for 2 years, but it will renew automatically after every 3 months. All right, so the next one restricts click checking by restricting iframe embedding. This X content type options, no sniff, set to always. It will block MIME sniffing attacks. The refer policy improves privacy by not sending the referrer information. And the permissions policy restricts browser features for user privacy. And this last line here will enable this XSS protection for older browsers, because you never know what browser someone might use. And the last thing that we can add here is an upload limit. We can say client max body size. We can set it to 10G, which is 10 gigabytes. So if you have a Nextcloud, for example, you should define this, or else the Nextcloud will run an error if you try to upload bigger files. So you can define it to 10 gigabytes, 15, 50, or whatever you need. And then you can upload a single file, for in my case, that is big, up to 10 gigabytes without running any error there. All right, with all that stuff added, we can save this. And again, we do nginx-t, and then it tells us in line 8, there is something wrong because it's a duplicate. Let's check that. 8G. Let me just check that. Okay, since we are already using Let's Encrypt certificates, we actually don't need those lines here. And we don't need those lines here, since it already comes with those Let's Encrypt certificates. It's all written in here in this include SSL NGINX conf. Let's have a look in this one. All right, let's see. So it's in @c Let's Encrypt live test. No. @c Let's Encrypt. Oh, just in here. Okay. So we have the options SSL. Let's have a look at that. Options SSL. So in here we already have the session cache, we have the session timeout, we have the tickets off, we have the protocols, we have the ciphers. It says off here, but I trust NGINX. I trust Let's Encrypt. I really like them. And it has the SSL ciphers here. So it's already everything that we defined too. All right, so let's save this and do nginx-t again. Now it says the syntax is okay and everything is successful. So we can do systemctl reload nginx. Let's have a look what really stayed in here. So what we have is those stuff here, those headers, and the client max body size that stayed from our original configuration. Let's clear this up first. All right. So, but how can we check if everything is okay, especially with the HTTP2? What we can also do is we can test it here. I think we need to https test.sysadminhub.com. We can test it here, and then it tells us that HTTP2 is supported and also the ALPN extension is supported. So it works here, but there is one more thing that we can check. We can go to sslabs.com and just try our test, sysadminhub.com here, submit this, and it will check our SSL report. It will take a while. This is done loading. It took a while, but it's telling us the SSL report for test.sysadminhub.com. It's an overall rating of A+. The server supports TLS 1.3. You can barely have it any better. So there's just a bunch of information in here with different it's testing with different browsers and stuff like that. And so you can really check you can check your domain at any point if it's up to standard. That's it. You now have a fully hardened NGINX reverse proxy running on HTTP2 with SSL security headers and a free Let's Encrypt certificate. If you found this video helpful, then hit like and subscribe for more content about Linux, Docker, and self-hosting in general. Thanks for watching and stay secure with your web services. See you next time.